On this channel, I have looked into the dark stories attached to some of the most well-known buildings. I've delved into the tragic history associated with areas which leads to tales of hauntings stretching for hundreds of years. I've looked into the horrific crimes committed to our fellow human beings, and most recently, I've looked into horror stories from World War II that have a more supernatural element to them. All in all, the content on the channel is enough to make you want to hang yourself from the nearest washing line. As a result, I try to make things as light-hearted, within reason, as I possibly can. This usually involves me taking the piss out of myself as much as possible. That is why, after the last few episodes, I've decided to write an episode a little bit lighter. We all know the horrors of war. They are lessons that need to be heard and remembered. If we don't remember the utter nightmares of the last 120 years, we are destined to repeat them again. But in this episode, I'm going to look at the stories from the last 120 years that are a bit more light-hearted in the face of such horror. The ways that soldiers in the most horrendous conditions dealt with the constant fear of death, or the feelings that they had towards each other despite trying to kill each other minutes before. During World War II, the angry little man with a moronic mustache went trotting across Europe. Poland, Belgium, Holland, France, all occupied before he got to the French border. Now here he encountered an issue that has stumped both the English and the French for the last 1,000 years, the English Channel. This little body of water has stumped invasions time and time again, and now Hitler was gearing up for the challenge. He bombed cities, he sent the Luftwaffe, and started getting increasingly angrier. During this time, Britain started to create defences that gave the impression that Britain was gearing up for a massive invasion of France. These forces massing on the shores of Britain were actually fake, made out of wood and canvas, or even inflatable. From the air, they looked real and intimidating. After seeing this, Hitler had the same idea. He started to gear up his own wooden army on the shores of France. The Luftwaffe set to work on their cardboard airfield. However, the RAF had received intelligence about the airfield and had decided to continue to let them build. Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Napoleon Bonaparte. After months of construction and hours of labour, the false airfield was now complete. The RAF decided to launch an attack on the airfield. They sent a single plane over the airfield which dropped a single bomb before flying away. The bomb was made of wood, with the words "wood for wood" painted on it. A retired German Lieutenant Colonel Werner Thiel went on to say how much he admired the RAF's sense of humour. The bomb is now on display in the Airborne Museum at Sainte-Marie-Église, France. I apologise if I've butchered that. My French isn't that good. So despite the strange name, this is the story of a legend. Like it says on the tin, between 1939 and 1945, war had spread and encompassed the majority of the world. Britain had ports and airfields all across the world to be able to launch quick-fire attacks against the Axis forces. One of these ports was in South Africa, where a local resident was causing quite a stir amongst the British Navy, as well as the local train station. In 1937, a puppy was born and grew up on the streets. His travels led him to the Simonstown Naval Base, where he grew fond of the British sailors who would feed him, so much so that he'd lie in front of the gangway to ships. This wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for the fact that he was a Great Dane, but his unusual name came from the trains. The dog used to hop on and off the trains at various stations. Conductors would attempt to kick him off the train frequently, and he was referred to as Just a Nuisance, which was shortened to Just Nuisance. He became a local celebrity. Unfortunately, the train authorities couldn't find an owner to charge for the dog's day trips, and so they made the decision to have the dog put down. There was uproar from the public, but the Navy had a plan. Since Just Nuisance spent so much time at the naval base, the British Navy decided to enlist him into the Royal Navy as a volunteer. Not only did this stop the premature death of Just Nuisance, but it also meant that he could ride the train as much as he liked for free. He had his own bunk, his own uniform, attended parade, and even his own rap sheet, which included not leaving pubs, going AWOL, that's away without leave, and fighting with other mascots within the naval yard. After an incident with a car that made Just Nuisance develop a condition that was slowly paralysing him, the decision was made that he would have to be put to sleep to save suffering. He passed away in 1945 and was buried with full military honours and a firing salute by the Royal Marines. During World War I, warfare entered into a new era. The introduction of industrial machines as weapons of war, such as tanks, aircraft, and U-boats, meant that soldiers had to adapt quickly. During the First World War, Britain had to transport troops, munitions, and equipment over to mainland Europe. This required sailing across the English Channel. Not an easy task, as previously stated. Unfortunately, to stop the supply routes, Germany developed U-boats. These submarines were deadly and caused much devastation and loss of life. However, in order to identify the type of ship that they were to attack, they would either have to use a periscope or surface to get a better visual through binoculars. Knowing this, Britain introduced camouflage. Not the type of camo that we think of, though. They disguised the ships as pleasure cruises. Known as mystery ships, Q-boats or Q-ships, these warships were dressed up to hide the cannons and artillery. But in order for the deception to be more believable, they also introduced panic crews. Panic crews were members of the crew, mainly sailors, who would dress up as members of the public. When the alarm was sounded, they would break into an elaborate show of panic to hide the fact that they were the military. They even took it so far as to dress half the sailors up as women, and to have a parrot in a cage that someone would grab in panic as though to save a beloved pet. I don't know about you, but the thought of some burly bloke dressed up like a woman and running around the deck of a ship screaming in a high-pitched voice whilst his comrades ready the guns made me giggle. What absolute heroes. These stories are not here to make light of war. I'm telling them to show that even during the times of utter misery and horror, people will find a way to see the humour. It is a testament to the power of laughter, and I, for one, think that humour truly is the best medicine, and that we could all do with a bit of that nowadays. If my weird humour appeals to you, then take a look at my second channel, Hairy Man Reviews. Word of warning though, it's definitely not for children. Link in the description below, or click the link in the top right corner now. Anyway, that's all from us here at Dark Entertainment. We hope that you've enjoyed the episode. If you have, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for all notifications, and give the episode a thumbs up by hitting the like button. This will help me grow the channel. If you have any stories that you would like me to look into, or a location to have me visit, or even have any ideas for episodes, you can find me on X, Twitter, or email me at dark_entertainment@outlook.com. And remember, stay dark, stay creepy, and always laugh. Ta-ta!